So in answer to the question about the Puranas, the best thing to do would get the Srimad Bhagavatam. I received this in the forest in 1969. My buddy Kersi Bulsara brought me this in the woods. And it was really charming. Srimad Bhagavatam, the wisdom of God. After the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam is the most authoritative of the Indian scriptures. Christopher Isherwood says some good stuff here. There could be no more striking example of the breakdown of the philosophical liaison between East and West than our ignorance and neglect of the Bhagavatam, which is one of the great classics of the world. This isn't merely a well-translated book of picturesque and vivid legends about Sri Krishna and the early sages. It is a shockingly urgent message to mankind. This one is by Prabhavananda. This was my first Srimad Bhagavatam. Now I've got a volume set that I'd bring along. The 2-volume set is by Sanyal. I got it at Vedanta, but I just thought I'd read a bit from the cover of the 2-volume set, because it explains a bit about the Puranas. See, this is one of the Puranas. This is the main Purana. And in there you'll find a guy who thought so much about his deer that he reincarnated as a deer. So, just be careful, you pet lovers. Just be careful. Forming an important part of the epic literature of India, the Puranas are indispensable as a source for the cultural history of India. They've been held to be of great importance. It goes on and on. They throw a flood of light in regard to the history, religion, rites and customs, language, and cultural aspects of ancient India. Are immensely useful. Of the 18 Puranas, apparently there are 18 of them, the Srimad Bhagavatam is the most popular work and occupies an important position. In the 12 books with 360 chapters, 18,000 slokas, verses, it deals with cosmogony, genealogies, myths, legends, enumerates in detail the avatars. It's a work of profound import, enshrining in it the noble ideals. In its vast framework, it encompasses the sublime concept of bhakti, devotional love, and mysticism. The thread of connected stories that runs through the work provides a base not only for the profound and mystical philosophy of life, but also succor to those in quest for peace. So, I hope that answers your question. But this is a beautiful book. And I'd say the Gita is, head and shoulders above the rest, but this is a very charming and inspiring book. And it's so satisfying to go into my library and find it. Very satisfying. Isn't that a satisfying thing? Okay, now time. I want to get this one through in here quickly. Might be useful if you're facing extreme challenges, like a death threat, a health crisis, a bankruptcy, or a great loss. I was just musing on the Gospel of Ramakrishna years and years ago, which is a beautiful book. I don't know if you all love that book, but I think you just start reading it. It's just so inspiring. I just formed a practice out of just reading a passage there that I thought might be helpful to put in here. And I call it the Hama practice. Ramakrishna talks about this calf. And it's on page 451 of the Gospel. If you are in trouble sometimes, you just want to read this thing. I love calves personally. My grandpa used to love to look at little boys, little grandchildren, and his little calves. He was a farmer. And he loved to have the little kids and the little calves wrestle one another. And calves are so darling. And they're strong, and they got these big eyes. You're supposed to grab hold of the calf, and then the calf pushes you around, and Grandpa laughs. It was just really wonderful. So, from that loving of calf basis, there might be something of value here. So I'm quoting now. The misfortune that befalls a man, on account of his egotism, can be realized if you only think of the condition of the calf. The calf says, hama, hama. That is, I. So we're talking, based on the language used in India, the calf's call or the calf's speech is hama, hama. So that's their approximation. And hama, hama in Hindi means I. So the calf says hama, hama and just looks at its misfortune. At times it is yoked to the plow and made to work from sunup to sundown, rain or shine. Again, it may be slaughtered by the butcher. In that case, the flesh is eaten and the skin tanned into hide. From the hide, shoes are made. People put on these shoes and walk on the rough ground. Still, that is not the end of the misfortune of this calf that has been made into shoe leather. Drums are made from its skin and mercilessly beaten with sticks. This calf has really ended up in a bad way. At last, its entrails are made into strings for the bow used in carding cotton. When used by the carder, the string gives a sound as you're doing your weaving. The sound is now, instead of hama hama, it's tu-hu, which in Hindi means you, or thou. It is thou, O Lord. It no longer says hama hama, I. It says tu-hu, you. Only then does the calf's trouble come to an end, and it is liberated. So, perhaps you've had a death threat or you've had an incredible loss of some sort. I just formed from just looking at this that most people start out when there's a massive problem. They just feel so self-threatened and self-focused that they're like the calf. They're chanting, hama, hama, I. And in order to change this whole situation and come to peace about it and also power about it, they need to go through a process similar to the calf. So I'm suggesting that when things are really tough, go ahead and feel like you're a calf and lie on your floor or sit in your chair and just plaintively with your big brown eyes, like a calf, chant hama, hama, hama. Just go ahead and feel this pain of all the threats and pressures you're undergoing. Just chant hama, hama, hama. Go ahead and just feel like a helpless little critter, because chances are under a big threat you do. So go ahead, chant hama, 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 I, and feel forlorn and lost and hopeless if you need to. Hama, hama, hama. And then feel the fear. Think of the possibilities and chant hama, hama, hama. As you do this, you'll feel that your fears, your bewilderment, and your littleness begin to ease, because you are a great soul, you're a spiritual being. And what will happen as you chant hama, hama, and face your fearlessness, face your fears, you'll become gradually changed. You move into some kind of serenity. If you do it long enough, you'll come to a place of calm. And you'll sense your eternal, pure, painless, indestructible soul. It's not at all threatened. Something within you is never threatened. Ever alive, ever strong, ever radiant. So you just chant Hama Hama until you get there. If it takes all day, what else you got to do? You're in misery. So chant Hama 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 quietly, and just let your process, let your soul come into the picture. And if you just chant Hama like that, you'll begin to find, eventually you come to a place of serenity and faith and hope and all kinds of insights about what to do. Because within you is an eternal, pure, painless, indestructible soul. So I'd recommend you give yourself a chance to be a little calf when it's really a big challenge that looks like it's going to wipe you out. Just be like the little calf. Sit or lie on the floor, chant Hama. It's a marvelous way to start a process of healing. Okay. The one thing needful: to cross the river of the world, the river of Maya. It seems so frightening to cross the river of the world because there's so many pressures at the last minute or whatever, not to come to retreat or not to meditate or not to meditate deeply, whatever it might be. No, I'll skip my postures today or whatever it might be. The river is strong and the river is wide. The river is so forceful. When we say, I'm going to cross the river of Maya, we stop and think, this is impossible. How am I going to cross the river of Maya? So few succeed in crossing. Most of humanity just goes downstream. Who am I to cross the river? We wonder how we could possibly succeed. Mainly it's our body identification. We think we're a body. This is mainly who we are. That makes us fearful. It's fear for our body that makes us fearful for everything else. Makes us confused and weak, so we tend to fail. But in yoga, we discover we're not the body or the mind. In essence, we have the marvelous gift of a mind to use and a body to use. We graduate into identification with the seer. That place of buddhi we're talking about that watches the mind, you discover more clearly that that's you. And that bridges you right into your true self. There's a magnificent core being within us, and most people never know. You get to know your true self, it's easy to cross the river. Atman, the true self within you, leads to awareness of spirit everywhere, leads to a state of freedom, by which it's easy to cross the river, and into the divine play, the play of love between you and the Lord of your heart. In yoga, whichever kind you practice, whether you're a devotional yogi called a bhakta, a jnana yogi called a jnani, a wisdom yogi, or a raja yogi, attuning with the divine will, or you do mantra yoga or laya yoga, tantra yoga, hatha yoga, there are all these wonderful yoga practices. Whatever yoga you practice, you can cross the river. If you're a devout person who doesn't know yoga, you can cross the river. And you'll grow in grit, courage. You'll grow in buddhi, this clarity. Yoga involves, and the path involves, crossing the river involves a definite sense. You face so many challenges, you get more and more courage. You face so many confusing things, you get more and more clarity. So you grow into your own true grit and your own unshakable buddhi. This crossing of the river of the world is not really terrifying or difficult. It just seems so. It seems so due to the stories and traumas of persons who mainly identify with their body, and that's why they go downriver. They don't learn who they are. They don't discover their inner power. They just never figured out who they were. That's why they're going down the stream. They're just kind of leading a mindless existence, powered by their emotions rather than a holistic awareness. So, what happens is, as you begin to see your identity with spirit that you are a spiritual being, the spirit is your essence, it gets easier and easier to cross the river. But the thing about crossing the river is it becomes no longer a labor in which so many are defeated. It becomes fun. As you identify with your spiritual nature, it gets easier and easier to cross this river. And you begin to cross the river of the world with gusto and confidence. Don't need to be fearful and afraid of making a mistake. You tune in with this inner power, you can cross. Sri Ramakrishna, 497, paragraphs I and J. The rishis, the wise people of old, had timid natures. They were easily frightened. Do you know their attitude? It was this: let me somehow get my own salvation. Who cares for others? It goes on to say, a hollow piece of driftwood somehow manages to float, but it sinks if even a bird sits on it. This little piece of driftwood. So that's the old sages. They were just weak, had timid natures, just concerned about their own salvation. But Narada and sages of his kind are like a huge log that not only can float across to the other shore, but can carry many animals and other creatures as well. The idea is, why be a little piece of driftwood? Why not be a huge log that floats across? A steamship itself crosses the ocean, also carries people across. Teachers like Narada belong to the class, not of the jnani, which is a person who has discovered spirit everywhere, but a vijnani. A vijnani is one who knows how to apply spirit, apply spiritual awareness. So just knowing it is one thing, but being so knowledgeable and deeply involved in it that you understand how it works and how to apply it, that's this higher class. Like the sage Narada belongs to the class of the vijnani. They were more courageous, there's our word courage, than the other wise men. They not only knew spirit, they knew how spirit worked, and they let it operate in them and in their lives. Now, I've asked my Indian friends how you play the game of satrancha, and they didn't know. But some of you have Indian contacts. I'd love to know how the game satrancha works, because here it is in this paragraph. These courageous wise men, they were like the expert satrancha player. You must have noticed. I haven't noticed because I've never seen anybody play satrancha. Or even, I don't know how to pronounce it. Maybe it's satrancha or something like that. You must have noticed how this expert satrancha player, how he shouts as he throws the dice. He says, what do I want? 6? No, I want 5. Here is 5. And every time he throws the dice, he gets the number he wants. He's such a clever player. And while playing, he even twirls his mustaches. Having a good time, getting what he wants, masterful playing here. So confident he's got time for his mustache, as plural. A mere jnani, somebody who's realized spirit but hasn't gone deep into awareness of what it is. A mere jnani trembles with fear. He's like an amateur satrancha player. The amateur satrancha player is anxious to move his pieces somehow to the safety zone, where they won't be overtaken. But the expert, the vijnani, the more enlightened person, isn't afraid of anything. He's realized both aspects of God, personal and impersonal. He's talked with God, he's enjoyed the bliss of God. A mere jnani, the one who's just kind of at the beginning of realization, is a monotonous person. He always analyzes saying, it's not this, not this, not this. The world is like a dream. But I have raised both my hands. Therefore I accept everything. So, what on earth does this mean? For example, this Satrancha story. Does this mean that we're supposed to get so whatever we want will happen? A lot of people think that's what they're doing yoga, and one day whatever they want will happen. Or that, yes, I'm calling the shots. In the view of yoga, no, it doesn't mean that. It seems to mean that, in terms of the Satrancha player, it means you will cross the river of Maya, sure-footedly, or with gusto and confidence. You will cross with delight and power and strength and not much iffiness. It will be with certainty, with gusto, because you know you're crossing with God's power in you and God's love and guidance in you. You know that that's what's operating. Spirit is moving and operating here. So you're going to cross. And that's how to go. The human ego trying to cross is a scared thing, and often feeble, and often stupid. You cross with the help of this inner spiritual energy, and this inner spiritual knowledge and wisdom, which you find in meditation, and you go with gusto and courage and confidence. A lot of people don't have much confidence in their practices. They think I'm a feeble person getting some comfort and solace from my practices. Not. These practices are empowering me every day to make this wonderful crossing. You live from strength and confidence, not from fear and feebleness. You have love of life. You are strong enough to extend a helping hand. You're strong enough to give people an encouraging word, an uplifting smile. You're not living in fear. You're living with gusto and confidence. Those are the devotees. I recall H.S. Lewis, who was one of the giants of the mystic world in the West. He was the head of the Rosicrucian order for many years, way back in the 20s and 30s. Friends of mine who were studying with him were a bunch of young guys in their 20s, and they were just kind of waiting for an initiation, and they were joking around and playing around and just having a wonderful time. And H.S. Lewis walked in on them, saw them just having fun. He says, you know, what you're doing is really important, because it's easy to lose your gusto. Be like this. Be young and strong and happy and cheerful and powerful all your way through the mystical practices. Don't lose that. Keep your youthful vividness, richness, sweetness. Just be happy. Be joyful. Be strong. And I always treasured hearing from these guys, you know, how H.S. Lewis inspired them. They were wonderful men when I knew them, and they were still full of joy and laughter and facing life as winners, not losers, or not tentative winners. They were not tentative, firm. So, in terms of you making your crossing, you'll need courage. We've talked about developing courage, and you'll need this ability again and again at will, like right now. Let's see if we can be a seer. Can we view all of our consciousness from this serene place just like this? Can we see it rather than any thought dominating, any feeling dominating? We can watch with clarity our thoughts, our feelings, our senses. We're distinct from them. We can see them. We're aware of them. And we're distinct from them. Can you do that right now? Okay. Well, you want to get so you can do that anytime, night or day, at will. Go there. So anyway, in terms of making your crossing with courage and that seer clarity, the seer, the buddhi, the witness, as you work with those, you'll get confidence and gusto, and they're really a nice expression of being a devotee. I'm a feeble devotee. No. A real devotee has confidence and gusto. Now, they go through a period of questioning themselves and becoming humble and softening their ego. That's true. But you come out the other side with confidence and with verve. One of the signs of deep meditation, you have zest afterward. You have a sense of zest. Zest for life. Zest for the path. Not, oh yeah, this is the one I'm doing. Hope it'll work out sometime. Tragic.